Here is your upgraded 2100-word script. Imagine being in a room full of cameras, bright lights, and music so good it makes your whole body move. Everything looks perfect on the outside. The dancers are sharp. The music is fire. The host is smooth as silk. But suddenly, something happens that no one expected. Something so shocking, so out of place, that the people running the show scrambled to make sure the world never saw it. They cut it. They buried it. And for years, they acted like it never happened. But secrets have a way of coming out. And this one changed everything. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you are going to see Soul Train in a completely different light. And trust us, once you hear the full story, you will never look at that famous dance floor the same way again. Soul Train was not just a TV show. Let that sink in for a second. For millions of people across America, it was the highlight of the entire week. Every Saturday, families would rush to their living rooms, turn on the TV, and wait for that iconic theme song to hit. When it did, something magical happened. The screen filled up with the best music, the best fashion, and the most electric dancing you had ever seen in your life. It was like a party that came directly into your home, and you were always invited. Black culture, black joy, black talent, all of it was front and center, not pushed to the background like it so often was everywhere else. For the first time, millions of people got to see themselves on national television as the stars of the show, not the sidekicks, not the background. The main event, every single week, without fail. The man behind all of this was Don Cornelius. And if you do not know that name, you need to. Don was from Chicago. He had a deep, smooth voice that could make anything sound cool. Before Soul Train, he worked as a radio DJ and hosted dance parties at local high schools across the city. He called those parties the Soul Train, and the name stuck. He would ride public transit across Chicago, traveling from neighborhood to neighborhood, bringing music and energy wherever he went. That journey became the soul of what the show would eventually stand for. When he finally got the chance to put his vision on television, it started small. Black and white cameras, a tiny budget, a simple set. But the energy in that room was absolutely unstoppable. The dancers brought something real to that stage. Something that no fancy production budget could ever buy. And viewers at home felt it every single time they tuned in. By 1971, Soul Train went national. It moved from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles and started airing in cities across the whole country. Don Cornelius became one of the very first black men to own and produce a nationally syndicated TV show in America. Think about what that means. At a time when black voices were rarely heard in powerful rooms, Don built his own room. He owned it. He ran it. And he made sure it stood for something bigger than just entertainment. When he walked onto that stage, calm and collected in his perfectly fitted suits, the whole mood shifted. He was not just a host. He was a statement, a symbol, proof that it was possible to build something great from nothing and own every single piece of it. The dancers were just as important as any star who ever performed on that stage. These were not trained professionals from fancy dance schools. They were regular kids from a neighborhood. Kids who practiced their moves at block parties and rec centers and school gyms. They showed up to Soul Train and lit the whole place on fire. Viewers at home tried to copy every single move they saw. The Soul Train line became one of the most famous moments in television history. A long corridor of dancers where two people at a time would walk down the middle and show the world what they had. Jody Watley got her start there. Rosie Perez got her start there. The Jackson 5 actually learned the robot dance from the Soul Train dancers. That is not a rumor. That is documented real history. People would line up around the block just for a chance to be on that stage. It was that powerful. It meant that much. But here is where the story gets complicated. Here is where the curtain starts to come down. Because behind all that beauty and brilliance, there were some very dark things happening that the producers did not want anyone to find out about. And one of those things was caught on camera. A moment so raw, so unexpected, that the people in charge made a decision to hide it completely. They did not want it on air. They did not want it talked about. They wanted it gone forever. But the people who were there that day never forgot it. And neither did the people who eventually heard the story and started asking questions. The moment involved Rosie Perez. At the time, she was one of the most popular and beloved dancers on the show. Don Cornelius admired the way she moved, and she had become a real fan favorite. But things between them were not as simple as they looked on screen. Behind the scenes, Cornelius had been pushing Rosie to join a music group he was putting together on the side. She said no. That no did not sit well with him at all. And one day, the tension that had been building between them exploded right there in the building. Cornelius pushed her to perform in a way she was completely uncomfortable with. When she refused to go along with it, the situation turned physical. Rosie Perez later told the story herself. She said the only thing she could grab in that moment was the 2-piece Kentucky Fried Chicken dinner they had been given as payment for dancing that day. She threw a greasy chicken wing and hit Don Cornelius right in the head. She said she was absolutely mortified by what happened. But she also made it clear that she felt she had no other choice in that moment. The cameras caught the chaos that followed, and the producers made sure that footage never made it anywhere near a television screen. Now pause on that detail for a second, because it reveals something massive about how the show actually operated. The dancers on Soul Train, the very people who made the show what it was, the ones viewers tuned in every week specifically to watch, were being paid in fast food. Not money, chicken. Some of them reported they received nothing at all. They were told that being on national television was their reward. Exposure, the producers called it. But exposure does not pay rent. Exposure does not feed your children. These young men and women poured their hearts, their creativity, their time, and their bodies into that show week after week. They invented dance moves that the whole country started copying. And, in return, many of them got a meal from a fast food chain and a handshake. One dancer said it plainly years later. The show was built off the sweat of their backs. And nobody said a word about it publicly for a long time because nobody wanted to lose their spot. Nobody wanted to be the one who spoke up and got shut out. The problems did not stop there. Dancers were sometimes pitted against each other deliberately. Competition was encouraged not just for the energy it created on screen, but to keep people working harder for less in return. The best spots near the stage or up on the risers were constantly fought over. The pressure behind the scenes was intense and relentless. There was also a culture of silence that surrounded the whole operation. If you wanted to stay, you stayed quiet. If you made noise, you were gone. And behind the scenes, there were also reports of Don Cornelius having inappropriate relationships with some of the dancers while he was still a married man. The Los Angeles Times investigated and reported on these stories. The image of Soul Train to the outside world was polished, powerful, and joyful. But inside, there was a storm that had been building quietly for years and years. Cornelius himself was also struggling in ways that most people on the outside never got to see. As music changed in America through the 1980s and into the 1990s, he found himself feeling increasingly lost. Hip-hop was rising fast and reshaping everything about the music industry. But Cornelius did not understand it, and he admitted that openly. He even said publicly that groups like Public Enemy frightened him. He still invited rap artists onto the show because the ratings demanded it and the show needed to stay relevant. But anyone paying close attention could see that his heart was not in it the same way anymore. The show he had built with so much passion and sacrifice was slowly becoming something he no longer fully recognized or connected with. By the early 1990s, Cornelius stepped away from hosting after more than 20 years in front of the camera. Different hosts came and went trying to fill that enormous space he left behind. Mistro Clark, Shamar Moore, Dorian Gregory. They all brought their own personalities and energy to the stage. But none of them had what Cornelius had. That natural cool, that unshakable presence, that sense of calm authority that made everything feel intentional and smooth. Without him, the show started to drift and lose its identity. Ratings dropped steadily. TV stations began moving it from its beloved Saturday afternoon slot to late-night hours, where fewer and fewer loyal fans could find it. Tribune Entertainment, which had helped distribute the show for years, shut down entirely in 2007. And just like that, the machine that had kept Soul Train alive for over 3 decades began to fall apart piece by piece. The show stopped producing brand new episodes after the 2005 to 2006 season. Instead of creating fresh content, they simply played old clips from the 1970s and 1980s and put a new title on it. They called it the Best of Soul Train. It was the first obvious sign that the end was near, and the audience could feel it. In 2008, Cornelius sold the rights to the brand entirely. New owners arrived with big plans and ambitious promises. YouTube channels, DVD releases, a Soul Train cruise, talk of a possible movie. Some of those things actually came to life. Many did not. But the weekly show, the Saturday ritual that had meant so much to so many people for so long, that was gone. And no amount of rebranding was ever going to bring it back. Then in 2012, the world received the most heartbreaking news of all. Don Cornelius died by suicide at his home in Los Angeles. He was 75 years old. His final years had been filled with deep personal pain, a difficult marriage, a messy and painful divorce, health struggles, private battles that he had kept carefully hidden from the public eye for a very long time. The man who always appeared so perfectly in control, so effortlessly smooth, so untouchable on that stage, had been suffering in silence where nobody could see. His longtime business partner had met with him just 1 week before and said he seemed perfectly fine. Nobody saw it coming. And when the news broke, the grief hit people everywhere like a wave they were not prepared for. People dressed up in 1970s clothes and danced in his honor. They gathered in streets and parks and living rooms just like they used to every Saturday morning. They played the music loud and proud. They did the Soul Train line one final time in his memory, because that is what he gave the world. Not just a TV show, not just a dance floor. He gave people a place where they were truly seen, a place where they were openly celebrated, a place where the music hit different because it came from something real, and it meant something deeply personal to everyone watching. Soul Train lasted for 35 full seasons. It launched careers, shaped fashion, introduced the world to the greatest music of multiple generations, and gave millions of people something to be genuinely proud of every single week. But behind the glitter and the groove, there were real people who were hurt, real moments that got buried and hidden away, real chaos that the cameras caught and the producers scrambled to erase from the record. The infamous scene they tried to hide was never just about a chicken wing. It was about power. It was about silence. It was about who got to control the story and who got left out of it entirely. The legacy of Soul Train is complicated, beautiful, and broken at the exact same time. Just like most things that are truly worth remembering. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell us what you think about what really went on behind those famous doors. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden and untold stories behind the biggest names in entertainment history, hit that subscribe button right now, because we have so much more coming your way.